Humanity was about to be fucking unleashed in an interstellar alien battle arena, fighting tooth and nail in a bloody gladiator pit for bloodthirsty reptilians until our dying breaths, if that's what it took to stop our planet from getting vaporized. Greg Grant's eyes snapped open as he awoke on a frigid metal slab, muscles sore and stiff in a shadowy chamber. Strange, iridescent walls gleamed under dim light. A hulking alien barged in, scales, claws, towering over Greg. "Human, you've been taken to planet Krella. You fight for our entertainment now in the arena. Refusal means your Earth is destroyed," it snarled in garbled English. Greg hauled himself up, marine training kicking in. "I'll fight in your sick games, but only until I find a way to escape this hellhole and get back to Earth. If it's a fight you oversized lizards want, it's a fight you'll get." The alien Rigor led him out, clawed hand clenched around Greg's arm. He gawked at the alien city, twisted spires, thrumming reactors, swarming crowds of reptilians. More humans were unloaded from ships, stumbling out in shackles. Rigor turned to Greg. "The mighty Hydrogen have conquered 1,000 worlds. What makes you think humanity won't be crushed under our heel like the rest? You'll battle aliens from 100 systems in the pit. If you want your precious Earth to survive, you'd better get used to painting the sands red for our amusement." Greg gritted his teeth as the gravity of the situation sank in. He was stranded on an alien world, among a cruel species that lived for violence, and the fate of humanity itself now depended on him surviving their twisted blood sports. The reptilians wanted a show. He'd give them one they'd never forget. He'd slaughter every alien they threw into the arena with him, bathe in their gore, rip them apart with his bare hands if needed. And when the time was right, he'd fight his way out, steal a ship, and bring the fury of humanity raining down on their scaly heads for daring to threaten Earth. He was human. He would fight, endure, and triumph. It was time these scaly alien freaks learned what humanity fuck yeah really meant. Greg was hauled through the alien city, past more twisted spires and swarming crowds of Hydrogen, reptilian eyes all fixing on him with cruel interest. The human captive was brought to a colossal structure, the famed gladiator arena. It towered over the surrounding buildings, a massive circular wall bristling with advanced alien energy shielding. The Hydrogen guards shoved him through a dark doorway into the bowels of the arena. They tossed Greg into a cramped holding cell, slamming the metal door shut with a clang. The human pulled himself to his feet, taking in his new cellmates. They were gladiators from a motley of alien species, a hulking insectoid, a lithe reptilian, a burly creature covered in matted fur, and several other fearsome specimens. All of them looked battle-scarred and brutal, eyeing Greg with suspicion and hostility. The insectoid, a towering mantis-like creature, scuttled forward, mandibles clicking. "I am Zax," it buzzed in an alien tongue that Greg's translation implant rendered into English. "You do not belong here, human. You are weak, unworthy prey." Zax lunged with a spiny limb, but Greg's marine reflexes kicked in. He sidestepped the strike, seizing the insectoid's arm and wrenching it into a lock. Zax screeched in pain as Greg swiftly took it to the ground, pinning it. "I'm no prey," Greg snarled, "and you'll find I'm full of surprises." He released Zax, who skittered backward, eyeing the human with a new wariness. A small wiry alien with mottled green skin approached. "I am Krell," it said. "You fight well for a human, but it will not matter. I have been in this cell for 10 cycles. The Hydrogen have been stealing the greatest warriors from 100 worlds to battle for their amusement for centuries. None of us have ever escaped. We live and die at their whims." "We'll see about that," Greg muttered. He had no intention of being the Hydrogen's plaything. Suddenly the cell door opened. Riga loomed in the entryway. "Human, you fight now!" Greg was herded out into a long tunnel. He could hear the roar of a crowd growing louder. The tunnel opened up onto a sandy arena floor, thousands of Hydrogen spectators howling and jeering from the stands. On the opposite end, a gate was rising. A massive, wolf-like creature with vicious fangs and claws prowled out. A Fenrir, a fearsome alien predator. The Fenrir lunged, a blur of fur and fury, but Greg was ready. He rolled under its pounce, coming up behind it. The creature whirled, snarling, but Greg delivered a devastating punch to its jaw, followed by a knee to its chest. The Fenrir reeled back, momentarily stunned. Greg pressed his advantage, grappling the creature and wrenching its neck in a brutal twist. The Fenrir went limp. The crowd fell silent for a moment, then erupted into thunderous roars. A human had just bested one of the fiercest beasts in the galaxy with his bare hands. Greg stood over the defeated Fenrir, chest heaving, adrenaline surging. He raised his fist to the crowd in defiance. Guards rushed out to take him back to the cell. As Greg was marched down the tunnel, he noticed Rigor and several other Hirogen clustered together, deep in intense discussion. His implant picked up snatches of their conversation. The human shows promise. DNA, Omega Project, Super Soldier Serum. Greg's mind raced as he was thrown back into the cell. The arena battles were a front. The Hirogen were using them as a testing ground, selecting the greatest warriors to harvest their DNA for some secret super soldier program, and if they succeeded in creating an army of gene-boosted reptilian soldiers, it wouldn't just be Earth at risk, the whole galaxy would be in peril. But now Greg had a mission beyond just survival, or saving his own planet. He had to find a way to destroy this Project Omega before the Hirogen could bring their monstrous plans to fruition. Back in the dingy cell, Greg slumped against the wall, mind racing with the implications of Project Omega. But he couldn't dwell on it now. Escape had to be the priority. As the cycles wore on and Greg kept racking up victories in the arena, he found himself growing closer to Krell and a few other gladiators who shared their cell. There was Goran, a hulking mass of living stone who spoke rarely but had a surprisingly philosophical bent, and Lyra, a sleek feline humanoid with lightning reflexes who moved like flowing water in battle. In whispered conversations, shielded from the guards, they began to plot their escape. Greg took the lead, his marine training kicking into high gear as he devised tactics and analyzed the Hirogen's defenses. The chance to put their plan into action came sooner than expected. Greg was hauled out of the cell for his next match, coming face to face with a new breed of opponent in the area, a massive Hirogen called Thrak, bristling with cybernetic enhancements that made him more machine than reptile. Greg and Thrak clashed in a whirlwind of fists, claws, and cybernetic blades, the roar of the crowd rising to a fever pitch. Thrak was faster, stronger, his mechanical limbs moving with inhuman precision as he pummeled Greg mercilessly. But the Marine refused to stay down, gritting bloodied teeth and strategizing, even as he struggled to his feet again and again. He studied the arena, searching for any weakness, any advantage to exploit. And then he saw it. A flickering in the energy shields high above, a power relay on the brink of overload from the strain of the fight. In a desperate gambit, Greg maneuvered the battle closer to the shields, ducking and weaving as he goaded Thrak into striking recklessly. The Hirogen pounded the shields with a barrage of blows, metal on crackling energy, until finally the relay blew in a shower of sparks. The shields sputtered and died, the force field that had contained the arena's violence for centuries fading away. Seizing the moment, Greg launched himself at Thrak in a final, relentless assault, driving the Hirogen back as Krell, Goron, Lyra, and the others burst from the sidelines and into the fray. Hirogen guards poured into the arena as the gladiators made their break, plasma bolts and alien blood filling the air. Greg and his friends fought like unleashed demons, human and aliens united, tearing through the Hirogen ranks with a ferocity born of desperation and a thirst for freedom. In the chaos, they burst into the tunnels beneath the arena, following the twists and turns until they stumbled into a hidden laboratory, a chamber of horrors filled with stasis pods and grotesque instruments. Inside the pods, rows of Hirogen floated in bubbling tanks, their bodies warped by a twisted synthesis of reptilian, insectoid, and a dozen other species' DNA, the Omega soldiers. On flickering screens, data files laid out the Omega Project's true goal in cold clinical detail. Not just a gladiator program, but the creation of the perfect super soldiers to lead the Hirogen's conquest of the galaxy. Greg's blood ran cold with the realization of what he had to do. It wasn't enough to escape this hell. He had to end the Omega Project here and now, or nowhere in the universe would be safe from the Hierogen's new army. Gritting his teeth, he turned to his companions, already dreading the battle ahead. Greg gritted his teeth as he faced down the rows of stasis pods, each one holding a warped Hierogen super soldier, an abomination of twisted genetics. His team fanned out behind him, Krell's claws twitching, Goron's stony fists clenched, Lyra's eyes narrowed to predatory slits. "We end this, now," Greg growled. As one, they attacked the pods, ripping out wires, smashing tanks, sending gene-altering fluids gushing across the floor. Alarms blared and red lights flashed as the lab descended into chaos. The Omega soldiers twitched and spasmed in their tubes, their grotesque forms shuddering as the pods failed. Explosions ripped through the chamber, hurling shattered glass and twisted metal. Greg and his companions fought through the destruction, heading for the exit, but their path was blocked by a squad of heavily armed Hierogen guards, Rhaegor at their head. "Destroy them," Rhaegor roared over the cacophony. "Protect the Omega Project." The guards opened fire, plasma bolts streaking through the smoke. Greg's team scattered, taking cover behind the wrecked pods. Lyra went into a dizzying roll, closing the distance to the guards in a flash and pouncing on them in a whirlwind of slashing claws. Goron charged like a living battering ram, stone skin absorbing plasma blasts as he barreled into the Hierogen line and sent them flying. Krell scuttled along the walls and ceiling, spitting globs of corrosive venom that sizzled through armor and flesh. Hand Greg waded straight into the fray, grabbing the nearest guard and slamming his head into a shattered stasis pod, then whirling to kick another's weapon from his claws before dropping him with a devastating punch. Rhaegor lunged at Greg through the melee, cybernetic talons extended. "You've ruined everything," the Hierogen commander snarled, slashing at Greg's face. "I selected you myself for the gladiator pits. Your DNA was the key to the Omega Project's success." Greg ducked under the blow and drove his fist into Rhaegor's midsection, feeling the crunch of exoskeleton. "You chose the wrong human to fuck with," he spat back. They traded blows, human muscle and bone against Hierogen cybernetics and savagery, as the lab crumbled around them. Rhaegor was fast and relentless, his enhanced body dealing punishing hits, but Greg was fueled by fury and desperation. He fought with the ferocity of a cornered animal, absorbing the punishing strikes and retaliating with brutal efficiency. His fist smashed Rhaegor's jaw, synthetic bones shattering. A headbutt caved in the Hierogen's reptilian snout, spraying ichor. An elbow strike shattered the commander's cybernetic eye, sending sparks cascading. Finally, Rhaegor crashed to the floor, broken and twitching. Greg stood over him, breathing hard, knuckles split and bloodied. "It's over, Rhaegor," he panted. "The Omega Project ends here." But the Hierogen only laughed, a gurgling, maniacal sound. "Fool," he hissed through ruined jaws. "If I can't have my super soldiers, neither will you have your victory." Rhaegor's claw stabbed down on a blinking panel on his armor, a self-destruct mechanism. A robotic voice echoed through the collapsing lab. "Detonation sequence initiated. Omega facility will self-destruct in T-3 minutes. "Time to go!" Greg roared to his team. They sprinted for the exit, leaping over the fallen Hierogen and the bodies of the failed Omega soldiers. The entire complex shook and shuddered as they ran, explosions and falling debris dogging their every step. They burst into a hangar bay, alarms shrieking and emergency lights painting the scene in hellish red hues. A sleek Hierogen spacecraft sat at the far end, their ticket to freedom. Piling inside the alien vessel, Greg slid into the pilot's seat as his companions strapped in behind him. His fingers flew over the unfamiliar controls, adrenaline and desperation guiding him as he fired up the engines. The ship rocketed out of the hangar, the roar of the engines mingling with the thunder of the exploding base behind them. Greg white-knuckled the controls, coaxing every ounce of speed from the ship as they hurtled into the night sky. And then, the Omega facility detonated in an apocalyptic blast, the shockwave slamming into the ship and sending it careening wildly. Orange and red fire blossomed behind them, the death throes of the Hierogen's twisted ambitions painting the heavens in an infernal glow. Greg fought with the bucking ship, teeth gritted, muscles straining, until finally he brought it under control. The flaming wreckage of the facility dwindled behind them as they soared into the star-speckled void. In the sudden silence of the cockpit, Greg and his team exchanged looks of stunned disbelief and exhausted elation. They had done it, struck a devastating blow against the Hierogen war machine, and escaped to tell the tale. But even as relief washed over them, a grim realization settled in. This was just one battle in a much larger war. The Hierogen would be enraged by the loss of their precious Omega project, and they would doubtless seek revenge. As Greg plotted a course through the unfamiliar star system, he knew their fight was only beginning. But they had dealt the first blow and shown the galaxy that humanity and the other races would not simply lie down and accept conquest or extinction. They had drawn a line in the sand and declared to the cosmos, "Humanity, fuck yeah." Greg and his ragtag band of alien gladiators hurtled through the void in their stolen Hierogen ship, putting distance between themselves and the smoldering ruins of the Omega facility. As Lyra tended to their wounds and Goron stoically manned the helm, Greg pored over star charts, desperately seeking safe harbor. Suddenly the comms crackled to life. A distress signal, faint and garbled, but unmistakably human. Greg's heart raced as he triangulated the source, a remote planet, far from any charted trade routes. They set down on the planet's surface, a desolate landscape of jagged rock and swirling dust. Following the signal, they soon discovered a hidden Hierogen outpost, its squat buildings nestled in a craggy ravine. Infiltrating the compound, the horrors within quickly became apparent. Dozens of aliens, shackled and brutalized, were subjected to cruel experiments at the hands of Hierogen scientists, and among them, a face Greg never thought he'd see again, his brother Mike, missing for years since the Hierogen raids on Earth began. "Greg?" Mike croaked, barely recognizing his brother through a haze of pain and despair. "Is it really you?" Greg embraced Mike fiercely, tears stinging his eyes. "I'm here, Mike. I'm getting you out of here." As he freed Mike from his restraints, his brother grabbed his arm urgently. "Greg, listen to me. The experiments, the Omega serum, it's all happening here. They've perfected it. They're going to make an army. You have to stop them." Alarms blared as Greg and his team battled through the facility, freeing captives and fighting off Hierogen guards. But as they made their escape, a guttural roar shook the compound. Mike doubled over in agony, his body twisting and distorting. The Omega serum, it seemed, was already coursing through his veins. With horror, Greg watched his brother transform into an unstoppable engine of destruction, the serum warping his mind and body. Mike lashed out indiscriminately, smashing through friend and foe alike in a blind rampage. "Mike, please," Greg pleaded, narrowly avoiding a bone-shattering blow. "This isn't you. Fight it." But there was no reasoning with what Mike had become. Greg battled his own brother in a heart-wrenching clash, trading blows that cracked stone and shattered steel. Even as he fought for his life, Greg's heart broke for the gentle, kind-hearted man his brother had once been. In the end, there was no other choice. As Mike bore down on him, lost to the serum's madness, Greg made the hardest decision of his life. A single, precise strike, a killing blow delivered with a sob catching in his throat. Mike crumpled, the light fading from his eyes. The Omega serum's curse finally broken. Around them, the outpost shook and crumbled, self-destruct protocols triggered by the Hierogen scientists. "We have to go now," Lyra yelled, dragging a shell-shocked Greg towards their ship. They fled the compound as it collapsed in on itself, explosions chasing at their heels. But a desperate cry made them pause. Krell, pinned beneath fallen rubble, his insectoid limbs flailing helplessly. "Leave me," the alien gladiator hissed. "Get out of here. Warn the galaxy of what's coming." Tears in his eyes, Greg nodded. There was no time. They could only watch as the outpost imploded, taking Krell and the twisted remnants of the Omega project with it. Aboard their ship, streaking away from the doomed planet, the weight of all they'd endured crashed over the survivors. Greg slumped against a bulkhead, his brother's blood still staining his hands, the screams of the Hierogen's victims still echoing in his ears. But even as grief and exhaustion threatened to overwhelm him, a cold, unyielding resolve crystallized in Greg's heart. The Hierogen had to be stopped, their reign of cruelty ended. For Mike, for Krell, for every innocent soul snuffed out by their insatiable hunger for conquest. Greg would fight them to his last breath, rally every world and species he could to stand against the coming darkness. The Hierogen wanted a war. Then he'd give them one, take the fire of humanity's defiance to the very heart of their empire and burn it to ash. He looked to Lyra and Goron, his comrades, his friends forged in the crucible of the arena. Set course for the Laios system, he said, naming a distant quadrant known for its powerful, technologically advanced civilizations. We've got an alliance to build, and a message to spread. Humanity won't go quietly into the night. If the Hierogen want to pick a fight with Earth, they'd better be ready to take on the whole damn galaxy. You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.